All right, hello, folks. This is the second game of the two new 2v2s we did. Again, same teams, same forces, though there are some different decks. So Baker was playing his Entente deck, so the common coalition of Yugoslavia and the Czechs. Um, Again, very much a bigger deck, elite infantry, not a huge amount of units, but as he said in his Steam review, I like my units hardened. Um, Good air tab, or a pretty standard air tab. Mix of tanks. He doesn't have any super heavy tanks on this deck, but the base Vihors are pretty can still be pretty nasty if used properly. And then Liam is playing a Red Dragons deck, so China and North Korea. He made this right before the game started, so or not this game, but right before we started like fully playing the 2v2s. So sort of thrown together. Um, has a bunch of infantry, a bunch of rifle infantry, pretty normal support tab, lots of tanks at a range of prices, and I would say he's got fair amount of tools in his air tab as well. Um, on the other side, uh, we have Rob has switched over to his Israel deck, so that he's been using. Um, Bunch of supply. He has rockets. He has artillery. Um, Lots of tanks that are pretty good. Lots of recon. I would say air tab probably needs some adjustments. And I also think his infantry tab would has some good stuff and some stuff that has not been particularly useful for him. Uh, and then Sean is playing the same West German deck that he was in the previous game. So, let's get started. Nuclear Winter is coming. They're sort of the two sides of the big river. Rob and Liam are in Foxtrot in India, and then Sean and Baker are in Delta Alpha Charlie area. Um, this is Conquest again, so controlling zones is the name of the game, as well as the fact that Gulf and Bravo are on the river side are over here are important. So, um, Sean and Rob definitely had a strategy of having Sean just sort of hold and gum up the works as much as he could in Delta and Alpha, and have Rob push really aggressively into India, um, which ended up working out for them pretty well. Should look at the starting units. Um, let's see. Yeah, so Baker heading over towards the other side of the river. Recon Heli, the Neva that doesn't require radar. Um, 84 recon tank, Conqueror's M, Strop 2 for AA, medium tank, the Bov Raketas, which is these weird rocket trucks that are actually pretty decent fire support. And then he has some, probably, I think it's just 3 stack of Proletarian 90 and a 3 stack of the Bradukska Pez, the Yugoslavian light infantry, and then some recon infantry in a little recon truck, and 1 command. As well as Liam's leaving command back here. Liam is bringing in another command for India. Recon infantry, trucks, the Chinese recon tank, or the good recon tank, and then the cheap T-55. It's a mix of Zhanshi 85 and Lijian 90, some cheap ATGM infantry, Chinese Marines, Lijian, some ATGMs, some 50-point tanks, and the 65-point tank destroyer to cover in India. At the start for here, there's a lot of commands. So Sean has brought in 2 commands, 2 infantry commands. He has some Fallschirmjägers for the town and Delta, Leopard 185, Furnace Bear, 3 stack of Panzer Grenadier 90s and Marder 2s, and a Gepard, and also some ATGMs, which I think are also heading towards the Delta town. Rob has started with 3 commands, 2 infantry helicopter commands, and just a helicopter command. These Anafas have the Israeli commandos, some spikes, regular infantry, a 180-point super heavy Merkava 3, 2 radar, Shanav, which is an IHawk basically, Pivads, a non-radar truck with guns on it, a little recon tank, that are all heading towards Foxtrot. Additionally, Liam has brought in a rocket plane at the start, and he saw this road as the one road down this way, and thought, I'm going to attack that road. The thing is, the rocket planes are very good at shooting light vehicles and infantry squads that you can see. So he actually times it perfectly and hits a bunch of stuff. The plane does die. But because it's just rocket planes, they don't take that much damage. So nothing's actually... A few things lose morale, a few things have, like 1 damage done to them. So this is much more effective with things like Nighthawks, super heavy bombers, in terms of doing damage, and in terms of really stopping a person's advance. I guess cluster bombers would also work at that. Some people have managed to time like artillery or cluster rockets on at the start of the game, which is like scummy, but it's a valid tactic. But what is really valuable is napalm. Because, for example, if you put a napalm bomb at this road, it doesn't actually hurt anybody, but it forces everyone to go around them. So, it really slows the advance. Additionally, having these 2 commands at base is not advantageous. There's definitely some miscommunication. Or this command was just forgotten about, because they could have either started with 1 less command, or had a big points lead. Additionally, because Baker only brought in 1 command, he's grabbing Charlie for the points, but he doesn't have something to grab Golf, which really should be a top priority. Should be like the next thing he's bringing in, if not something that he brings in at the start, or the next thing Liam brings in, because this land spawn zone makes it so much easier to reinforce this side of the river. Additionally, I'd say Baker was not necessarily aggressive enough in terms of, like, you really should be trying to get into this town, this forest, and potentially this town in Delta at the start. So the fact that Sean has forces in here means it'll be hard to push out. This pushing these forward, this heavy tank and then this light recon tank into this woods, completely unsupported by infantry, was incredibly foolish, and with anybody who has most sense as a player would have been punished heavily. Infantry in forests, particularly deep forests like this, are so dangerous. The only thing that can beat them is other infantry or like lucky bombs and artillery. Pushing the tank forward like this tank is stuck. It can't move, it's stuck in place. It would be so easy for 25-point infantry squad with a good AT weapon to flank it and kill it, and it would be toast. There's nothing it could do. So just pushing from both of these guys, like Liam is slightly less egregious because he pushed forward. He has 1 squad of recon infantry, but like a couple lose NGs, and these guys don't even have that great AT weapons in this town. Like this thing is showing its rear to the enemy. Be so easy to kill. And yeah, you can't be seen, but like this forest should be getting filled with infantry by whoever controls it. And then this tank should be extremely dead. Yeah, Baker should have had forces in here much earlier. And generally should just be poking and prodding more. Though he's being hindered. Finally, there's a command coming in for Gulf. But there's, Bravo's been ticking. And this command has been noticed and is being brought over to Delta. So the points advantage is already going towards Blue 4. And I would say just this is sort of map knowledge. This town is good to defend for this red side. But really you want to be getting up into this forest and this forest, if not this town. And then going on the offensive from there. Additionally, I'd say this AA could be further forward, like more where the Strop is, and then the Strop could be further forward, like, up here. That's a minor note. But this tank just chilling, showing its rear armor, down the road, towards where the enemy is. No support, no screen, no support, no A, like, the AA is back here. This tank should be toast with any sort of aggressive motion with infantry. It'd be in trouble. This is moving up from this town. This town is good, having recon, having ATGMs. This town is really hard to attack. And it's good to attack from across into this forest here. But again, here, this tank moving across this forest, all it would take would a squad of infantry in this forest to leap out, hit an RPG on the side of it, and it all would be good. And then here, compounding the error, even more tanks being thrown into this woods with no infantry support, or no infantry, like, once you've cleared out a forest, like if you had a screened infantry in front who swept their way through, and were like, alright, there's no bad guys in here, then you can move your tanks up and take advantage of the cover in the line of sight. But just charging tanks into the woods, like if you have enough, like this is a big blob of tanks. It's like 55, so that's 110, 290, 390, 430. So this is like 530 points of tanks. So this probably, if there were 2 squads of infantry in here, they probably would have just enough weight of armor and firepower to win against 2 squads of infantry. But those 2 squads of infantry would probably kill and damage a lot of these tanks, and at cost effectively. And all war game, you can't replace, once you lose something from your deck, it's gone forever. And if you lose things and like you get more money to buy more units on the map all the time, but losing a like 100-point tank to a 25-point infantry squad, even if you kill the 25-point infantry squad afterwards, is not sustainable. That's the power of infantry. Additionally, these infantry need to be unloaded and like actually in the town. It would help them with the line of sight, because like these squads they're blocked, but their line of sight is blocked not just by the smoke but by these houses, and it would help them fire across. Additionally, like there's no AA for these tanks. 1 helicopter, anti-tank planes, they're out in the open. This should be easy pickings. And this should be where Liam should be communicating with his buddy Baker, be like, hey, do you have an AT plane? Like, there's these tanks in the open, they don't have any AA with them, or they don't think they have any AA with them. They're expensive. They should be easy to... do you have any AT helicopters? Like, this should be something he's communicating about. Hey, there's a lot of tanks in the open. This is better, but here's the thing. His infantry are charging across and shooting, and his tanks are doing fire support But he's charging his tanks up with his infantry. They have way better range. They could have just stayed in this forest and done just as good a job. But instead, like, he's bringing them into RPG range. And this is another, like, he wins because it's 2 infantry squads. And he has just an overwhelming rate of fire. But he doesn't need to put, this is an unnecessary risk that should be punished with AA planes, infantry in this town. Like, 1 squad of infantry in this town could probably kill all these tanks. Here, this is a pretty good push from Baker, because he's pushing his infantry across, infantry reveal, and then all the fire support comes up. Look how fast they die. That is exactly right. He needs to have his conquerors in the towns to, you know, attack these tanks more effectively. But that was exactly right. His infantry, and yeah, he just has enough. He has his own tanks. He has enough conquerors and various ATGMs to kill these tanks. Drop bombs, very effective. Now that these infantry is in here, press the advantage. Don't wait around. At least start probing. Like, you encountered resistance, you crushed it. There's probably not that much behind him. Squad should be heading up the woods, and then these Patavranki and Vesikari should just be charging it. Like, there's 5 guys here. Yeah, there's artillery coming in, but you want to be, like, once that artillery barrage lands, just pile them in there. This is a decent move of just getting people forward. I wasn't paying too much attention to this over here. Alright, over here. So Rob has successfully pushed Liam out of this town. And now he is frontally assaulting entrenched infantry again with vehicles in range of their RPGs. Complete waste. Should have pulled back. He's bringing more infantry up. He has infantry here. Move them up. Position your fire support vehicles in line of sight and range of the enemy infantry, where you know they are because they've been, but out of line of sight, out of range of their RPGs, and then push your infantry forward, reveal them, let it go, and go. These bombs are off target. Push in. Not expecting that much resistance here. Not experiencing that much resistance. Pushing this down. Oh, the CB's just moved. So at this point, if your infantry are moving the town and you're only encountering a squad fighting back, that's probably the only squad in the town. So have 1 squad sweep through the town, make sure that nobody's there, and just push forward. You have the advantage. Look at how empty this is right now. Be pretty easy for Baker's forces to push forward. Again, this tank, it's out in the open. It should be being killed by AT planes, which I know are on both of these decks. This 5-out comes in. This is a seed plane. I think it's just not being aware of what the plane does, but yeah, it doesn't hurt. The gun run doesn't hurt the tank at all. It needs an AT. This plane gets stunned by this forward AA and killed. Additionally, these helicopters are on the ground, so they can't really use their rockets. If they just popped up and shot their rockets at these infantry in the town, it would stop this assault. Additionally, they're treated as ground targets when they're on the ground. So things like AT missiles can shoot, and tank main guns can shoot, which are really bad for helicopters. So this Merkava 3D was very effective over the course of the game. Probably killed a lot of stuff. Used up all its main gun ammunition. But this thing, like, should have been dead a long time ago. It is very unlucky to miss both missiles. This is a good use of the bomber. AA definitely needs to be forward more. Additionally, Baker should have brought in a CV much earlier for Delta. Like, as soon as he was, like, it's pretty easy for the, what is right now, like, the hotel side of the map to get infantry in, to get control of this forest in Delta, and it's super easy to just stick a CV in here. And then you wouldn't have had this +1 tick going for, like, several minutes. Definitely these infantry have been annoying. And yeah, this tank is screwed. Like, there's nothing it can do in the forest against it, like 3 squads of infantry. Just saying, this Mars being over here, just bring it in. This thing has 42k range. Just bring it in next to your base, near your fob. You know, and use it. It can hit anywhere on the map. It doesn't need to be over here. That tank showed its side armor as a swarm of missiles were coming in, and thus it was destroyed. And this is a good use of Baker of bringing in planes in groups. Shoots a seed missile, destroys the radar. Bomber coming in. Rocket plane coming in. Does need to pay attention and evac this, because if there's AA over here, it doesn't, the Orao, it's just knowing the plane. It evacs based on its missiles, not its rockets. At that point, that was the moment for these 40 Proletary, after these bombs are dropping stuff, to go forward. Maybe once the artillery stops. Like, panicked. There's fire. They're ineffective. Your infantry should be moving forward. So that the moment the shells stop dropping, they're in contact with the next force. This plane loitering about to the point where it's running out of fuel, like, that's bad. It'd be so easy for an air superiority fighter to come in and just kill this thing. And additionally, yeah, it gets killed by all this AA. It does kill these units here. But, like, additionally, if your plane survives after loitering around expending all its fuel, it takes longer for it to reload. And the thing that you care about reloading planes is their ordnance. So, like, sort of, you basically want your plane to be in the air as short as time as possible, because then you have less time refilling it, which means more strikes, more sorties with it, and less danger to it for an air superiority fighter coming in, or overflying AA, or just all sorts of bad things happening to it. Charging forward, this 80-point, very fragile vehicle, not worth it. It should stay in the trees and ambush stuff. I was to say, when you call in a unit from spawn, it comes and you tell it, oh, go here. it goes by the fastest way, not the safest way. So when you're in a position like this, you want to probably bring in somewhere that you know is safe, and then manually control where it goes in for the final approach. Additionally, this plane, first it's loitering over AA. It got lucky that all those missiles missed, and it ground attacked a strafing rather than direct attacking a tank. Like this. Kills that tank. So if Liam had this plane up to JH-7, which is a Chinese direct attack plane earlier, and was using it more effectively of direct attacking tanks, this push would have been so much, probably wouldn't have happened, because just the tanks would have been killed so easily. You just loitered a plane over this area and it was fine. So the AA is pretty weak. This tank is ripe for the picking. A lot of this game in general is about awareness of what you have and remembering what data you have gotten of what the enemy has. Another thing, so the Mars, it's a cluster rocket. What's going to be in a town? Infantry. Infantry don't take AP damage. So this was a waste of a barrage. And that's another awareness thing of thinking what's probably in this area. It's probably not going to be heavy tanks. It's probably going to be infantry if there is. This happens to be empty because of the bombing run. But you should be thinking with this, where do I expect there to be a bunch of light vehicles? Or lightly armored vehicles, or just vehicles in general. Probably at the edge of tree lines, like here, or in here, or over here. Or where did I see AA come from? Or, oh look, this is where their artillery keeps shooting from, and it's been shooting from the same place the whole game. Maybe I should try and counter battery it. Again, this place has been constantly getting shelled. But this isn't destruction. In order to confirm kills, you need to actually move forces into contact. And it'd be pretty easy to push this out. It's just 11 Jaegers and a supply truck. Again, bringing AT planes to straight infantry is not effective. You should be saving these for heavy tanks. Expensive vehicles out in the open. And see how, they're just too fast to even get good runs. This plane, they'll take 2 runs and shoot 90 bullets. It's just not enough. There is a tick. This command infantry ended up accidentally in the carrier again, so it's not doing anything. This plane has been trying to attack these infantry the whole time. It just doesn't have the range. 2,100 meters. This thing is going 1,000 kilometers an hour. It passes by whatever's on the ground with its gun so quickly that it doesn't get a chance to shoot. And coming up, it's damaged. They both used a bunch of fuel. And coming up, perfect targets for this plane that won't be available because it's going to be getting repaired and refueled and stuff, and it won't be available. It's very smart from Rob of seeing that he's taken India, of bringing up a command immediately, because that's the point of this game. So even if this command is only here for 5 minutes, that's going to be 5, 60, 12, 2 points a tick, 12 ticks a minute it's about 5 seconds. Then for 5 minutes, so 24 by 5, it's 120 points. That's like 20% of the score you can get in 5 minutes, just from having this command in here for 5 minutes. Again, coming in and strafing. Look how low they have to go to strafe as well. Spend way more time in range of AA. And no damage. Nothing hurt. No units killed. Those planes, none of them died, but it's only because these AA pieces are pretty lame as well. And here's more cluster rocket artillery on units that don't care about that. But really, this push of taking taking control of India, Rob has done the right thing here of moving his infantry up to these towns, and then, he's got AT infantry dug in, just because William has lost so many things in this push, so much points worth of units, then he really can't keep control of this force. This is decent use of smoke of getting his infantry up, and then this one unit is exposed to all this fire support, and then pushing his infantry forward into the town. But he just simply doesn't have the points to beat this, because he's just lost so many points. And generally, particularly in Conquest, your income is the same the whole game, no matter what you control. So basically, for every point you waste, that is an advantage to the other person. So if they killed a 25-point unit for free, no trade, then they're like 20 killing units still matters, because they're 25 points ahead forever. It's not like destruction where you take his own from them, you get more income, and you can catch up. So that's why killing things still matters in this game mode. But again, here these tanks, they're getting lucky because they're engaged, like infantry engaged, they just have so much more. This is still bad play. This tank is incredibly vulnerable. Like right there. These tanks, even though they're showing their front of 12, that's 20 AP people that could do way more damage if there wasn't all this other. Oh god. Yeah, this plane loses line of sight, gets shot down. So when planes lose line of sight, and you have attack orders on that are not fire positions, they just fly around. Which is why you need to either be sure you're going to have line of sight on the target, and if you lose line of sight on the target and you're not going to get it back, just evac the plane. Or if you're using stuff like rockets and bombs, where you can blind fire them, you fire position them. But the game's winding down. There's a bit of a helicopter push here into this forest of Delta, which Sean has held very well. But there are definitely points where Baker could have had a major advantage in his infantry. He just pressed his advantage. He could have completely taken control of this forest. Because once you clear out the forest and get to the edge, you can start putting GMs and tanks and stuff that you can't cross, can't reinforce this position. And then once you're in control of this forest, you can very easily attack this town, attack this forest, and just from here you crunch it on Alpha and you control the game. Game's very close. Again, bringing in an expensive air superiority fighter is a waste. There's plenty of AA. There's AA around here. It gets shot down. Um, and the game's over. So it's a very good push from Baker into the Delta town. Excellent job, really strong. Big fan of that. Good use of air from him. I think he just needed to be even more bold after that push into the Delta town. Generally, when you have, it's people very rarely defend in depth in this game. Partly because, uh, if you have all your forces on the front line and you win, like forces that are behind your front line aren't that valuable in terms of helping you win. And also, um, it's just kind of not the way the game is played. You don't generally just don't have enough money to do it. So generally, if you're able to take like an important frontline position, there's probably not going to be that much behind it immediately because people are then spawning. Oh shit! Oh shit! I now need to get a new defensive line built up. So you can be a bit more bolder on your push. Um, Sean, I think you did a good job overall just defending your territory against a better player. Like you obviously like you didn't go positive on your KD, but you did your job of allowing the other player on your team to get his territory, which is what won you the game. So it's just like good, solid defense. And you persisted, you built up the second line in Delta and held it. And you're just persistent enough to stay in. Liam, I think you just need more time with the game to get used to stuff, more time with Dex. Rob, you had a good push, but it was a good push because you were against a player who was significantly less experienced than you, and there were a lot of mistakes that you made. You were saved simply by just having an overwhelming force at one point that should have been punished by a more experienced player. Um, that didn't help you. But yeah, good games. Hopefully you learn stuff, and we can keep doing this.